When you reach a certain age, you'd think you've seen it all. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for that Friday in Chicago. It started as a surprise visit. My daughter Emily always loved surprises, ever since she was a kid in pigtails growing up in our little Evanston house north of the city. So when my Amtrak train rolled into Union Station, I figured I'd catch her off guard with a weekend visit. No reason, really, except that a father knows when something's off. Emily hadn't returned my calls in almost 2 weeks, a record for her. My son-in-law, Derek Turner, was no better. Always busy, always distracted, but this time, both of them had gone completely silent. I made my way through downtown, fighting that biting Lake Michigan wind, and caught the L up to Emily's neighborhood. The city felt the same, buskers in the subway, teenagers laughing on skateboards, and me, a tired old man clutching a battered duffel, rehearsing my speech for when she opened the door. But when I reached her apartment building on Maple Avenue, something was wrong right away. My key, the one Emily insisted I keep, just in case, wouldn't even turn. I twisted harder, feeling the cheap brass dig into my palm. I'd used that key dozens of times, including last Thanksgiving and the time Emily locked herself out after a yoga class. It had always worked. But now, it slid in and hit something solid, refusing to budge. The lock had been changed. I knocked quietly at first, then harder. "Emily? It's Dad! Just dropping by." Nothing. No footsteps. No voice. Just silence and the distant hum of traffic. I tried calling her, but all I got was that cheery voicemail she recorded years ago. "Hey, you've reached Emily Parker. Can't talk now, but leave a message and I'll call you back." I left a message, trying to keep the worry out of my voice. I tried Derek's number next. One ring, then voicemail. "Derek, it's Martin. I'm at the apartment. Where is everyone?" A neighbor's door creaked open. A middle-aged man stepped into the hall, carrying a trash bag and a set of keys. "You looking for Emily?" he asked, giving me a curious look. "I'm her dad. I was supposed to visit, but I can't get in." The man nodded, scratching at a gray stubble. "I'm Walter. Haven't seen her in a bit. She used to come and go, but not lately. Derek's been around, though. Keeps busy." "Busy?" Walter shrugged. "Parties, friends, late nights. Lot of noise for a married guy with a wife who's always been so polite." A cold feeling settled in my chest. "You seen Emily?" He shook his head. "Not for a couple weeks, come to think of it. But Derek's been coming and going with a different crowd. Sorry, I'm not one for gossip, but it seemed strange." I forced a thank you and stepped away, my mind racing. Why hadn't Emily called me? Why would Derek change the locks? Why was he partying when my daughter was missing? I went back outside, sat down on a cold concrete bench near the street, and pulled out my phone. Emily made me get one of these new smartphones last Christmas. "Dad, what if something happens?" she'd said, installing all sorts of apps I never use. Somewhere on that phone was the Find My Family app she set up herself. I fumbled through the icons, my hands shaking, until I finally got it open. It asked for a password. I tried my birthday and then Emily's old graduation year. Bingo, the app loaded. The map popped up with a pulsing blue dot for me in Evanston. And another marked Emily's iPhone, sitting across town at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. My breath caught. Not her work, not a friend's place, a hospital. Suddenly, the city was spinning. I felt 20 years older. Emily wasn't home because she couldn't be home. I stumbled into the street, hailing a cab, shouting for the hospital as the world blurred past. The driver, a kind young woman, saw the panic in my eyes and stepped on the gas. "Family emergency?" she asked. I nodded, unable to speak. I gripped my phone with white knuckles, tracking that red dot all the way through the city. I tried calling again. No answer, just that old cheerful message. It was the longest cab ride of my life, every traffic light another punch to the gut. By the time we pulled up to the hospital, the sun was sinking, painting the skyline orange and purple. I shoved some bills into the driver's hand, she wouldn't even take the change, and ran into the marble-bright lobby, clutching my travel bag like a lifeline. All I knew was that my daughter was somewhere in this building, and I hadn't heard from her in weeks. The hospital lobby was all cold light and worried faces. I hurried to the reception desk, chest pounding, feeling every year of my 73. "I'm looking for my daughter, Emily Parker. I believe she's a patient here," I said, voice shaky. The young woman behind the desk typed quickly, her eyes flickering over her screen. "Are you her emergency contact, sir? I'm her father, Martin Parker." She nodded and kept typing. Then her face softened. "Room 516, oncology floor. Take those elevators up, someone will meet you there." The word oncology hit me like a slap. Cancer. I'd buried my wife, Ruth, after a long cancer fight. Was this happening again? The elevator ride was silent except for the humming of the cables and the anxious shifting of other passengers. On the 5th floor, the air was heavy with antiseptic and quiet determination. Signs pointed the way: oncology, chemotherapy, palliative care. A nurse with gentle eyes met me at the desk. "Mr. Parker? Emily's dad?" "Yes." How is she?" She led me down a corridor painted with old, faded murals of cartoon animals. "Emily was admitted about 2 weeks ago. She's under Dr. Patel's care. We've tried contacting her family but only reached her husband." "Derek?" My voice soured at the name. She hesitated. "Yes. He visited once or twice, but—" Her voice trailed off. We stopped outside room 516. Through the glass panel, I could see her, my girl, propped up in a hospital bed, thinner than I remembered, her brown hair tucked behind her ears, and 4 drip taped to her arm. My heart broke right there. I pushed open the door quietly. Emily looked up, eyes widening. "Dad? It's me, honey." For a moment, neither of us said anything. I just crossed the room and hugged her, careful not to disturb the wires and tubes. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice thin, like paper. "I tried to call. You didn't answer. I got worried." She gave me a sad little smile. "I didn't want you to worry. I was going to call after my next scan. But things got worse." I sat on the visitor's chair, my old bones creaking. "What happened, sweetheart?" She took a shaky breath. "They found a tumor. Pancreatic. Stage 4. I've been here for 2 weeks now, Dad. They're trying to control the pain, but the doctors don't think there's much time left." I closed my eyes, trying to steady myself. I'd seen this before. Ruth had wasted away in a bed just like this, in a room just like this. "Why didn't you tell me?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Because after Mom died, you were so broken. I didn't want to put you through that again. I thought I could handle it myself." I took her hand. Her skin felt too hot, too fragile. "You're my daughter. There's nowhere else I should be." She squeezed my fingers. "You can't fix this, Dad. I know you want to. I'm just trying to make the most of the time I have." I nodded, feeling old and useless. "And Derek?" I asked, the question tasting bitter. Emily looked away. "He said he needed time to process. He's been staying with his brother in Oak Park, or so he claims. I haven't seen him since I was admitted." A surge of anger flared inside me. I wanted to march out and find Derek, shake him by the shoulders, make him see what he was losing. But Emily was already exhausted, and it wouldn't help. A nurse came in to check Emily's vitals. "Dad, you should get some air," Emily whispered. "Go down to the lobby. There's a cafe. I'll be okay for a little while." I kissed her forehead and stepped into the corridor, feeling lost. I wanted to be strong for her, but all I felt was helpless. In the family waiting room, I tried calling Derek again. Straight to voicemail. I scrolled through my phone, searching for anything that might explain his absence. And that's when I noticed an Instagram notification. Emily had set up an account for me, hoping I'd use it more. I opened it, and there it was, Derek's latest story. A rooftop bar in downtown Chicago. Derek in a sharp suit, laughing with friends, raising a glass of champagne. The location tagged as the Skyline at Lakeview, a place I'd only seen in magazines. Young women in cocktail dresses, a group of men toasting, the caption, "To new beginnings. To new beginnings." My hands shook with fury. While my daughter fought for her life, her husband was throwing himself a birthday party with strangers. I saved the post, screenshotting every photo and video. If Emily needed proof, if anyone did, I had it. My grief was turning into something else now, something harder. I wasn't going to let Derek get away with this. Back upstairs, Emily was sleeping. I watched her for a while, listening to the soft beeping of machines and the distant noise of city traffic. I promised Ruth, all those years ago, that I'd protect our girl. I'd failed her once already. This time, I wouldn't let Emily face her illness alone, or let Derek betray her without consequences. Sleep in a hospital never comes easy. I spent most of that night in the hardback chair beside Emily's bed, watching the city lights flicker beyond the window. The hum of machines and the shuffle of nurses' shoes in the hallway became the backdrop to my restless thoughts. I kept picturing Derek's face in those party photos, smiling, arm draped around some stranger, champagne glass raised high. I couldn't get over the unfairness of it. My daughter was fighting for her life, and her husband was out celebrating his freedom. As the sun crept over the skyline, painting the buildings gold, Emily stirred awake. Her voice was a raspy whisper. "Did you get any sleep, Dad?" "Not much," I admitted, forcing a smile. "Did you?" "Enough," she said, but I could tell she was lying. Pain does that. It wears you down in ways sleep can't fix. A few hours later, Dr. Patel entered the room. She was young but serious, her eyes kind behind black-rimmed glasses. "Mr. Parker, can I speak with you privately?" We stepped into the hallway. "Your daughter's condition is advanced," Dr. Patel explained gently. "We're focused on keeping her comfortable, but I want to be honest with you. There may only be weeks left." I nodded, trying to hold myself together. "Is there anything at all, we should be doing?" Dr. Patel shook her head. "The best thing is to make sure she isn't alone. Emotional support matters more than you think at this stage." That much I could do. I sat by Emily's side for the rest of the day, holding her hand, telling her old family stories, trying to bring a little warmth into the cold hospital room. Sometimes she'd laugh, a real laugh, and for a moment, it was like she was a kid again, chasing fireflies in the yard, painting on the porch, always full of life. But underneath it all, I could see the fear in her eyes. She was trying to be brave, for my sake as much as her own. Later that afternoon, while Emily napped, I took a walk around the hospital grounds. My phone buzzed, another voicemail from Derek finally. I listened, my heart pounding. "Hey, Martin. Sorry I haven't been in touch. Work's been insane, and I've been staying out in Oak Park. Tell Emily I'll stop by soon." He didn't sound apologetic. He sounded annoyed, as if all this was an inconvenience. The rage boiled up again. It would be so easy to call him back and tell him exactly what I thought of him. But Emily didn't need more stress. She needed peace. As I sat on a bench beneath an old elm tree, I pulled out my phone and called my old friend Sam. He retired from the Evanston police years ago, but he still knew how to dig for information. "Sam, I need a favor," I said. "Find out what Derek's been up to lately." Discreetly. Sam promised to look into it. If he's been making trouble, I'll know soon, he said. Back upstairs, I found Emily awake, flipping through an old sketchbook. She looked up, a hint of a smile on her lips. Remember that trip to Starved Rock, Dad? I laughed. You hiked circles around me. I thought I'd need a new hip. She grinned. You let me believe I was the strong one. You always were, I said softly. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing, her childhood dog, my old carpentry projects, the best pizza place in Chicago. It was a small slice of normal in a world that had gone off the rails. As the day faded into evening, Sam called back. His voice was grave. Martin, you were right to be suspicious. Derek's been spending money like water. Multiple charges at bars, hotels, and a jewelry store downtown. He's also been seen with at least 2 different women these past weeks. And get this, he's tried to access some of Emily's accounts, but the hospital put a freeze on things after her admission. A lump formed in my throat. Thanks, Sam. I owe you. I kept all of this to myself for now. Emily didn't need more pain. But in that moment, I made up my mind. Derek wasn't getting away with this. Not now, not ever. As night settled over the city, I sat beside Emily, holding her hand as she drifted off to sleep. I whispered a promise to her and to Ruth, wherever she was, I would protect our girl, no matter what. The next day, I took action. I printed out Derek's party photos and his social media posts, along with the list of his recent credit card transactions Sam had found. I slipped them into an envelope, addressed it to myself, and tucked it away in my bag. If it came to lawyers or courts, I'd be ready. But for now, all I could do was be present. To make sure Emily was surrounded by love, and not by the shadow of betrayal. I spent the night by her side, holding her hand, as the city lights winked in the darkness. The fight wasn't over, not for Emily, and not for me. The next morning started with gray light pouring through the hospital windows. Emily seemed smaller in her bed, the pale sheets swallowing her frame. I brought coffee from the lobby cafe, though it felt useless. Her appetite was nearly gone. Dad, she whispered, did you sleep? A little, I lied. Hospitals aren't built for comfort. She tried to smile. I'm glad you're here. Dr. Patel came in for rounds, her tone gentle but honest. Emily, we're adjusting your pain medication. I'll check in again tonight. Thank you, Emily murmured. After the doctor left, Emily's eyes glazed with exhaustion. I sat quietly, holding her hand, staring at the whiteboard where the nurses wrote notes. Pain 710. Restless. Family at bedside. A nurse brought in a tray, soup, crackers, green jello. Emily barely touched it, pushing food around the plate. Want me to sneak in a milkshake? I asked, trying to tease. She shook her head, but the hint of a smile returned. You'd get in trouble. Worth it, I said. There were moments when she drifted, half asleep, and I found myself walking the hallways, lost in my own regrets. I thought about Ruth, how she'd faced her illness with so much grace, how I'd tried to fix everything with research, treatments, even home remedies, desperate to hold on a little longer. The truth is, there are things you can't fix. But you can stand by the people you love, no matter how bad things get. My phone buzzed again, this time, a text from Derek. Hey, Martin. Can you let me know how Emily's doing? I'm slammed with work. Sorry I haven't visited. No apology. No explanation. Just empty words. I stared at the screen until the text blurred. I wrote back, my fingers trembling. She's very sick. She needs her family. If you care, come see her. There was no reply. That afternoon, Dr. Patel found me in the waiting room. She pulled up a chair, her eyes serious. Mr. Parker, we've arranged for a social worker to visit. Emily needs to make decisions about her care, who she wants as her medical proxy, What to do if. She let the words hang in the air. I understood. I'll talk to her, I said. When I returned to Emily's room, she was awake, flipping through an old photo album I'd brought from home. Pictures of her as a child, birthday parties, summer trips, Ruth's smile glowing in every one. I want you to be my proxy, Dad, she said quietly, not looking up from the photos. If anything happens, I want you to decide. Not Derek. A heavy silence settled between us. Are you sure? She nodded. He's not here. You are. That's all that matters. The hospital social worker arrived soon after, paperwork in hand. Emily signed, her signature shaky but determined. She looked up at me, her eyes fierce. Promise me you'll do what's right. I promise, I said, feeling the weight of it settle into my chest. Afterward, we sat together, watching the clouds roll over the city. What will you do, Dad? She asked softly. After. I swallowed hard. Take care of your garden. Fix up the house. Maybe travel a little. And remember you, every day. She squeezed my hand. Good answer. As dusk settled, the room filled with shadows. A nurse switched on the reading lamp and drew the curtains. Emily drifted off to sleep, breathing shallow and quick. I listened to her breaths, counting them like prayers, wishing I could take her pain away. At 9, I stepped outside for air. The night breeze off the lake was cold, sharp with the scent of rain. My phone vibrated, a call from Sam. Martin, I've got more, he said quietly. Derek's been trying to transfer money out of Emily's accounts. The hospital flagged it, so nothing went through, but he's persistent. And he's at the Skyline again tonight. Looks like another celebration, same crowd as last week. My heart pounded. Thanks, Sam. I need to handle this myself. I went back inside, adrenaline racing. I stood at Emily's door, watching her sleep, then made up my mind. I texted Derek one last time. If you want to talk about your wife, meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m., hospital cafeteria. No more excuses. He didn't respond, but I'd said my piece. Tonight, I'd stay by Emily, but tomorrow, I'd make sure Derek faced what he'd done. I pulled my chair close to her bed, took her hand, and whispered, I'm here, Em. I'm not going anywhere. And I meant it, with every fiber of my being. The sun rose pale and watery over Chicago, the city outside the hospital coming alive with the sound of traffic and distant sirens. Inside, it felt like time had slowed to a crawl. I sat by Emily's side, her breathing light, her face peaceful for the first time in days. I checked my phone, 9:15 a.m. Still no response from Derek. I wasn't surprised. He'd run out of excuses. I stood up, stretched the kinks from my back, and washed my face in the tiny hospital bathroom, willing myself to be calm. If Derek showed up, I needed to be steady, clear, not just angry. Emily stirred as I came back in. Where are you going, Dad? Just to the cafeteria downstairs. You want anything? She shook her head. Bring me back a story. That was our old code. Ever since she was little, she'd always asked for a story when I went out, even if it was just a trip to the gas station. Something about the world beyond the window, a reminder that life kept moving. Downstairs, the cafeteria was half empty. The usual hospital crowd, nurses grabbing coffee, a young couple with a sleeping toddler, 2 men in construction vests arguing about baseball. I chose a table by the window, my back straight, my hands steady. At 10:05 I saw him, Derek Turner, looking tired but trying to act confident, dark circles under his eyes, hair slicked back. He spotted me, hesitated at the doorway, then walked over, a hint of a smirk on his lips. Martin, he said, sliding into the chair opposite. I got your messages. I studied him, searching for the man I once trusted with my only daughter. All I saw was a stranger. I'll get to the point, I said. Emily is dying. She needed you, and you left her alone. You changed the locks on the apartment. You threw parties while she was in the hospital. I know everything, Derek. The bars, the women, the money you tried to move. He flinched, but tried to recover. It's not that simple. You don't understand the pressure, her illness, the debt, my job. I cut him off. You made a vow. Sickness and health, remember? You left her when she needed you most. And now you want her money too? His face hardened. That money was supposed to help both of us. You don't know what it's like watching someone fade away. I couldn't handle it. I stared at him, letting the silence stretch. You didn't have to handle it alone. You could have stayed. But you made your choice. I'm Emily's proxy now. I blocked you from her accounts. You get nothing unless she says so. He clenched his fists, but there was nothing left to say. The boy who'd once called me Dad was gone. She asked about you, Derek. She wondered why you stopped coming. I didn't have an answer for her. But now I do. Derek looked down, rubbing his temples. Is there anything I can do? I shook my head. Go home. If you want to apologize to Emily, do it now. Don't expect forgiveness, but do the right thing for once. For a moment, I saw something crack in him, maybe guilt, maybe just fear. He stood up, muttering, I'll think about it. Then he walked out, leaving his half-finished coffee and an emptiness behind him. I stayed at the table for a while, watching the city move on without us. Eventually, I picked up my phone and sent a quick text to Sam. He's gone. Thanks for having my back. Back upstairs, Emily was awake, reading messages on her tablet. She looked up, her eyes searching mine for news. Derek came. We talked. Did you yell at him? She asked, a hint of the old mischief in her voice. I smiled. Not much. I told him the truth. You're still the bravest one in the room. Emily's lips trembled. Did he say anything? He's sorry, Em. But I don't think he knows what that means. I think he's scared. She closed her eyes, breathing deep. I'm tired of being the strong one, Dad. I sat beside her, brushing her hair away from her forehead. You don't have to be strong, not right now. Just let me sit here with you. She nodded, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. For the first time in weeks, she let herself cry, and I just held her, wishing I could carry the pain for her. Later, as the nurses checked her IVs and adjusted her meds, I sat at the window, staring out at the city. I thought about all the things I'd wanted to say to Derek, all the ways I'd failed to protect Emily sooner. But she was here, and I was here. That was all that mattered. The fight wasn't over. Not yet. Hospitals have a strange way of making the days blend together. The rhythm of nurses checking vitals, the beeping of machines, and the endless cups of weak coffee create a routine that feels outside of time. Emily slept more often now, her voice softer each day, her hands always reaching for mine. Despite the sadness pressing on my heart, there was a kind of peace in these quiet hours. Emily and I talked when she could, sometimes about nothing, sometimes about everything. She wanted to hear stories from my childhood, from when her mom was still alive. I told her about Ruth's first pie, burnt crust, perfect filling, about the summer we drove Route 66 in a rusty old Chevy, about Emily's first steps on that squeaky kitchen floor in Evanston. Sometimes Emily managed a smile. Promise you'll tell those stories if I'm not around, Dad? For me? I squeezed her hand. I promise. But you'll be here a while yet. You're too stubborn to leave me alone. She closed her eyes, and for a moment it almost felt normal. The next afternoon, Dr. Patel visited again, her face lined with concern. Emily's pain is under control, but her kidneys are slowing down. It's time to prepare for the possibility of saying goodbye. The words hit me like a blow. I thanked her and nodded, not trusting myself to speak. That evening, a small miracle happened. Derek returned, Not as the man I once respected, but as a man who finally understood what he was losing. He walked into the room quietly, hands in his pockets, eyes red-rimmed. Emily blinked in surprise. "Derek?" He nodded. "I'm here. I should have come sooner." He took her hand, and for a moment, the years of disappointment faded. He apologized, not just for leaving, but for being afraid, for failing her when it mattered most. Emily listened, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. She didn't say it was okay, but she nodded, and I saw the tension leave her shoulders. After Derek left, Emily looked at me, exhausted but peaceful. "Thank you for making him come. I needed to hear it." "Of course, honey. You deserve honesty. You deserve closure." That night, I stayed up late in the family lounge, drinking coffee and watching the city lights. I thought about all the things I'd learned as a father, about loving even when it hurt, about showing up even when you're tired, about never giving up on the people who matter. The next morning, Emily was weaker, barely able to speak. I sat beside her, reading aloud from her favorite childhood book. She smiled faintly, squeezing my hand with surprising strength. Just before noon, Emily whispered, "Dad, I love you. Tell Mom I said hi." Tears burned in my eyes as I kissed her forehead. "I love you too, Em. More than anything in this world." She closed her eyes, her breathing slowing, and after a while, she slipped away, quietly, peacefully, holding my hand. There are no words for the emptiness that followed. The nurses came, gentle and professional, to handle what needed to be done. I stayed in the room, sitting by Emily, remembering every version of her, from tiny girl to strong young woman, to the brave soul she was at the end. Later, Dr. Patel offered her condolences and quietly explained the steps ahead. Derek returned, devastated but respectful. For once, we stood on the same side, not as rivals, but as two people mourning the same remarkable woman. I packed Emily's things with slow, careful hands, her sketchbook, her worn cardigan, a photo of her with Ruth, and the faded stuffed dog she'd kept since childhood. As I left the hospital, the city felt quieter, the air sharp with the promise of rain. Back in Evanston, the house felt both emptier and fuller, echoes of laughter and love filling every corner. I placed Emily's things by the window, where the sun would hit them each morning, and sat for a long while, listening to the wind in the trees. Even in loss, there was a kind of peace. Emily wasn't alone at the end. She was surrounded by family, by love, by the stories that made her who she was. I wasn't sure what came next, but I knew I would carry her memory with me, telling her stories, living with the same stubborn courage she'd shown, and keeping my promises every single day. The days after Emily's passing passed in a haze of paperwork, phone calls, and quiet tears. I handled what I could, called her friends, arranged a simple service, and made sure her affairs were in order. Derek and I, though never close, managed to work together long enough to honor her wishes. He apologized once more, quietly, before heading back to his own life. I wished him well, meaning it more than I expected. Emily's memorial was held in a small garden near Lake Michigan, her favorite spot for sketching and thinking. The wind off the lake rustled the leaves as family and friends gathered, sharing stories about her laughter, her art, and her stubborn kindness. Some people cried, others smiled, and everyone agreed she had made the world brighter just by being in it. After the service, I walked home slowly, feeling the gentle ache of loss but also the warmth of memories that would never fade. At the house in Evanston, I opened Emily's old sketchbook and found a drawing she'd done years ago, a family portrait, all three of us, holding hands in front of the lake. She'd drawn the sun with a big smiling face. In her own handwriting, she'd written, "We're together, always." I left her favorite mug by the window and put her sketchbook on the coffee table. Some mornings I'd talk to her photograph or read one of her old letters. The house wasn't empty. It was filled with her presence in 100 little ways. Life, as it does, moved on. The garden needed tending. The neighbors dropped off casseroles and warm bread. I went for long walks by the lake, stopping at the places Emily loved, talking to her as if she were walking beside me. Maybe she was, in some way only grandfathers and little girls would ever understand. Spring came, and with it a sense of renewal. One afternoon, as the daffodils started to bloom, I found a card in the mail. No return address, just my name written in careful print. Inside was a note. Thank you for taking care of Emily. For being there. For showing all of us what real love looks like. A friend. I never figured out who sent it. Maybe it was one of her classmates, or maybe someone from the hospital staff. It didn't matter. The kindness meant everything. I started volunteering at the hospital, reading to patients who didn't have family nearby. I shared Emily's favorite stories and sometimes the story of her own courage. Some days were hard, but most days I left feeling lighter, like I was keeping her spirit alive for others who needed a little hope. Derek wrote me once, a year later. He'd moved to Minneapolis, remarried, and become a father. He wrote, I'll never forgive myself for how I failed Emily, but I'm trying to be a better man now. Thank you for teaching me about forgiveness, even when I didn't deserve it. I set his letter beside Emily's sketches, another reminder that life is never just about endings, it's about what you do with what's left. Years went by. The house grew quieter, but I was never truly alone. On Emily's birthday, I'd bake her favorite peach cobbler, leave a piece on the windowsill, and tell her about my day. Some traditions you keep, no matter what. Sometimes, on slow evenings, I'd take out that old photo album, run my finger over Ruth's smile and Emily's bright eyes, and thank them both for the gift of love, imperfect, enduring, real. If you asked me what I learned through it all, I'd tell you this: hold your loved ones close, forgive what you can, and never miss a chance to show up, especially when it matters most. Because in the end, it's not the grand gestures, but the simple, steady acts of love that carry us through. And if you ever walk by Lake Michigan on a windy afternoon and see an old man sitting quietly, you'll know some stories never truly end. They just find new ways to shine.